We want to go beyond the common myths.
Right, that it's always anxiety or poor habits.
Exactly. We're about to explore some really fascinating reasons why this happens, starting with some biological shifts that are, well, often overlooked.
Yes, ma'am.
What truly surprised me in our sources on this was how one of the most common yet maybe least understood reasons behind these early morning wake-ups is actually a natural, predictable shift in our hormonal landscape as we age. It's not about doing something wrong. It's about what your body is subtly yet predictably doing.
That's a key insight. It really centers on the role of melatonin, the hormone that's pivotal in regulating our sleep-wake cycle.
Melatonin, right.
In your younger years, your body practically flooded itself with melatonin as evening approached. It set a strong, clear signal for sleep, like a powerful lighthouse, its beam guiding you unmistakably towards rest.
Okay, a clear signal.
But as the years pass, the volume of that signal naturally diminishes. It's no longer a loud bell ringing for bedtime. It becomes more like a soft whisper.
A whisper.
And this isn't a failure, it's a recalibration. Understanding that changes everything about how you might respond to it.
So it's not that the lighthouse goes out, but its beam just gets a little dimmer, making it harder to find your way to deep sleep.
Precisely. Consider James, for example, from the source. At 67, he'd always been a deep sleeper until, well, he wasn't.
Okay.
He found himself consistently waking around 3 a.m. no matter how tired he felt going to bed. Initially, he blamed stress, then maybe his mattress, the usual suspect.
Sure, the external stuff.
But eventually, he realized the change wasn't external, it was internal. His melatonin levels had naturally diminished, and his body was simply recalibrating its sleep rhythm.
That's a powerful distinction, not broken, just recalibrating. So for someone like James, or for you listening, if you're experiencing this, what's the first most actionable step? Is it about fighting the new rhythm or embracing it somehow?
It's absolutely about working with it. Understanding this allows you to support your body rather than, struggle against it.
Right.
Practical steps include things like dimming the lights in your home earlier in the evening, actively avoiding those blue light screens an hour or two before bed.
The phones, the tablets.
Exactly. And crucially, spending time outdoors during the day. That strengthens your body's natural awareness of daylight and darkness.
Okay, reinforcing the natural cues.
Yes. These actions reinforce your natural sleep cues, almost like adjusting the sensitivity on that dimmer switch we talked about. It's like working with the current rather than fighting against it.
Makes sense. But hormones aren't the only players in this early morning mystery, are they?
No, not at all.
There's another piece just as powerful, just as quiet. Your circadian rhythm.
Ah, yes, the master clock.
This isn't just your internal clock, it's the master conductor for your entire daily symphony of physiological processes, right?
Absolutely. And what becomes clear when you look at the research is that over time, this internal clock also begins to, shift forward for many people.
Forward, meaning earlier.
Yes, earlier. For many older adults, that shift moves everything earlier. You might naturally start feeling tired by 8 or 9 p.m., which could be hours before you used to.
Okay.
And when you fall asleep earlier, you naturally wake earlier, often right in that, mysterious 3 a.m. window.
So the whole schedule just moves up.
Kind of. Think of your sleep cycle like a train journey. When you're younger, that train might depart at 11 p.m. and arrive refreshed at 7 a.m.
Standard schedule.
But as you age, the departure time creeps up. Now, it might leave the station at 9 p.m. and, like clockwork, it pulls into the wake-up platform by 3 or 4 a.m.
It's not broken.
Exactly. It's not broken. It's just on a different schedule. And recognizing that is really vital.
It's fascinating how such a subtle shift in our internal clock can have such a profound impact.
Sure.
We often talk about needing 8 hours of sleep, but maybe we don't always consider when those 8 hours are meant to happen.
Precisely. Consider Maria, another example from our source. She retired 5 years ago at 64.
Okay.
And this shift came slowly for her. She stopped working, her days became quieter, and she subtly started eating dinner earlier, maybe watching TV in her pajamas by 6 p.m.
Winding down much earlier.
Without realizing it, yeah. Her body began winding down earlier each night. Before long, 9 p.m. felt like midnight, and bam, 3 a.m. became her new wake-up call, almost without fail.
Wow.
But once she learned that this wasn't unusual, that it was part of this broader rhythm that had simply moved, she stopped worrying so much.
That understanding helps.
It really does. She began making gentle changes, maybe a brisk walk after dinner, using soft lighting during the evening, a cup of herbal tea while reading, little cues that told her body, hey, we're not quite ready for sleep yet.
Subtle adjustments.
And over time, her sleep window stretched a bit, and that 3 a.m. wake-up shifted closer to dawn. It gave her a feeling of control and ultimately better rest.
That's a really helpful example. So what's the actionable insight here from understanding these shifting rhythms?
I think the key takeaway is that sleep isn't just about the quantity of hours. It's really about alignment.
Alignment between lifestyle and the clock.
Exactly. When your lifestyle and your internal clock are out of sync, that tension often manifests in your sleep. But the good news is, once you notice the mismatch, you have the power to adjust.
So sleep isn't fixed?
Not at all. It's responsive, and so are you. Your body is always giving you cues. It's just about learning to read them, you know?
Okay, that's the biological story. The hormones, the rhythm. But sometimes the wake up is purely physical, right?
What? Definitely.
As we age, our bodies carry more stories. Some are written in our joints, our bones, our organs. And in the quiet hours of the night, those stories often speak the loudest.
Indeed. And what becomes clear is how these physical disruptions are often just a natural part of living a long, full life.
Like aches and pains.
Sure, it could be a knee that stiffens after years of long walks, or maybe a hip that aches from decades of movement. These aren't signs of weakness. They're reminders of use, of life, of time.
Right.
And for many older adults, let's be honest, the 3 a.m. wake-up comes with an undeniable need to visit the bathroom.
Yes. The practical stuff.
It's not glamorous, but it's real. It's one of the most common disruptions. As the bladder becomes maybe less elastic, the muscles weaken a bit, the need becomes more urgent, more frequent in those quiet hours.
And then we often layer medications on top of that, don't we? Which can have side effects.
Absolutely. Things like blood pressure pills, diuretics, even some supplements, they can suddenly make your night full of interruptions.
Right.
But here's the thing to remember. Waking up doesn't mean you failed at sleep. It means your body is paying attention. It's responding to internal shifts, and that's not a flaw. That's function.
Function, not failure.
Take Eleanor, for example, from the source. At 75, she found herself getting up at least twice a night. At first, it really annoyed her.
Understandably.
She felt tired, worried something was seriously wrong. But after talking with her doctor, she learned the timing of her medication could be adjusted. She also started limiting fluids a couple of hours before bed and added a calming routine that made it easier to fall back asleep after those trips.
Small changes again.
Exactly. With a few thoughtful shifts, her sleep improved. Maybe not perfect, she said, but significantly better. And that, she realized, was enough. It brought her peace.
So the implication here is maybe there's a certain grace in accepting that rest in later life might look different. It might come in segments, not long stretches.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not about forcing your body into an old mold, but finding a new rhythm that honors where you are now.
Zooming out a bit, we see that sleep isn't really an isolated act, is it? It actually begins long before your head hits the pillow.
How so?
Well, it's intricately shaped by everything that happens during your waking hours. Your meals, your movement, your light exposure, even your conversations. Or maybe the lack thereof.
Right.
All of these send subtle messages to your internal clock, telling it when to start the process of winding down for the night.
And for many, especially in retirement or perhaps quieter phases of life, those daily rhythms and messages often shift dramatically.
They really can.
Dinner might happen earlier, evenings may become more sedentary, and the consistent stimulation that once kept your brain alert, later meetings, errands, calls, might just fade.
Right.
So how do these shifts in routine then impact those middle-of-the-night wake-ups?
Well, without that kind of structured stimulation, your body can interpret the new quiet as a cue to begin shutting down much earlier.
Okay.
Walter, a retired teacher mentioned in the source, noticed this himself. His once active days have become predictable, maybe a little too quiet, reading the paper, gardening, watching the news. He started falling asleep before 9 p.m. and waking well before sunrise. But after some reflection, he started building more active, purposeful movement into his afternoons.
Like what?
Light stretching, a longer walk, even volunteering at the local library a few evenings a week. Just gentle activities. And these nudged his sleep schedule forward a bit, helping him rest more deeply and wake up closer to the hours he preferred. Small changes really can have a big impact.
Oh, so light, movement, social engagement, they're like anchors.
Powerful anchors, yeah.
Yeah.
They hold your circadian rhythm in place. Without them, your sleep patterns can start to drift.
But perhaps the most profound aspect of waking at 3 a.m. has nothing to do with science at all.
Now we're getting deeper.
Perhaps it's something emotional, psychological, even spiritual. Sometimes that hour truly becomes a mirror for our inner world.
It's striking, isn't it? There's something uniquely vulnerable about those hours, maybe between 2 and 4 a.m.
Yeah, feels that way.
The world feels hushed, distractions are few, and your mind has little else to do but turn inward. For many older adults, these wake-ups aren't just biological, they're deeply psychological.
Okay.
It's in these moments of stillness that the mind often begins to process what hasn't been fully acknowledged during the busy day. Regrets, cherished memories, unfinished conversations, future worries.
They just surface.
They have a way of surfacing when the rest of the world is asleep, yeah.
So it's less like a disruption and more like an invitation to sit with what might have been buried or unexamined.
Exactly. I think that's a beautiful way to frame it.
Yeah.
As people age, they carry this vast collection of life experiences, some wonderful, some painful, many unresolved.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you feel emotionally steady during the day, the mind often chooses the quiet of night to sift through these layers.
Especially after big life changes.
Yes, definitely. This is especially true for those who've experienced significant loss, like a spouse, or faced major transitions like retirement, or maybe moved away from longtime homes.
Right.
These changes might not seem traumatic on the surface, but they ripple through your emotional life in ways that often go unspoken. That quiet loss of identity or purpose or connection can linger, only to rise up in the early hours when the day's noise fades.
This idea of the mind opening a locked door during those quiet hours is so vivid. Can you share maybe a real-life scenario like the one with Maria?
Certainly. Consider Maria again, the 70-year-old widow we mentioned. She often finds herself wide awake around 3 a.m.
Okay.
She doesn't feel physically uncomfortable, she says, nor is she anxious in the typical sense. But she describes it like her mind opens a door that was locked all day.
Wow.
Memories of her husband's voice, holidays gone by, choices made decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
They just gently flood in. Some nights are tearful, others are simply reflective, filled with a quiet sense of longing.
That sounds intense.
It can be. But for Maria, these moments became easier when she stopped fighting them. Instead of trying to force herself back to sleep immediately,
What does she do?
she began keeping a small journal by her bed. When she woke up early, she'd just write a few lines, maybe a dream fragment or a thought that wouldn't leave her alone.
A release spell?
Kind of. This small ritual gave her mind a way to release what it was holding on to, and often helped her return to sleep more easily. It allowed for a form of peaceful processing.
It's easy to dismiss these midnight thoughts as just emotional, but isn't there often a deeper biological or even physical connection? Something that makes us more vulnerable then?
That's a really astute observation.
Yes.
Around 3 a.m., your body is naturally in its lightest stage of sleep.
Okay.
This lighter sleep stage acts like a thin veil, making it incredible.
And that doesn't mean something's wrong with you.
Not at all. It just means you're human. Your need for connection and processing doesn't disappear with age.
So, for those experiencing these more emotionally charged wake-ups, what are some helpful strategies?
Well, the good news is that emotional wake-ups, like the physical ones, are often manageable with awareness and gentle support.
Like what?
You could be talking to a therapist to process underlying feelings, maybe joining a local community group to foster connection, or simply establishing a calming bedtime routine that helps you feel more emotionally settled before sleep.
Small acts of care.
Exactly. Small acts of care can make a significant difference. The key is really to acknowledge the emotional message, not try to suppress it.
Ultimately, what this all points to is that sleep, especially in later years, isn't just about physical rest, is it?
No, it seems much bigger than that.
It's about a deeper integration of all aspects of self: body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah, the broader implication is really about giving the body and mind space. Space to heal, to reflect, maybe make peace with the past and prepare for the present.
So if you wake up at 3 a.m.,
It might just be your brain gently asking, can we talk now?
mm,
And sometimes simply listening, without judgment is enough.
understanding is the first step.
Absolutely. Knowing that your 3 a.m. awakenings might be due to shifting hormones, altered sleep phases, physical discomfort, lifestyle patterns, or emotional processing that takes away the mystery and maybe the self-blame.
Right. You're not broken.
You're evolving. And your sleep is evolving with you. In fact, once people understand why they wake up early, they often find they can work with their body instead of fighting it.
That shift from frustration to cooperation.
That is the real key, I think, to graceful aging.
We mentioned James, Maria, Eleanor, and Walter earlier. This shift seemed to be really key for all of them.
It was crucial. None of them stopped waking up entirely, perhaps.
Right.
But each one learned something profound about themselves through that process. They discovered patterns, they made gentle changes, they became more compassionate with their own bodies and minds.
That's the kind of transformation that lasts.
Exactly. Not one based on control, but on understanding and acceptance.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's the biggest takeaway here. Sleep in your later years isn't just about getting through the night.
It's about listening.
Adapting, respecting the body and mind you've walked through life with for so long.
And this opens up a much larger, perhaps even more profound question, doesn't it? What else are these moments, these quiet hours, when distractions fade, trying to teach us about growing older with grace?
What's fascinating here, drawing from the source material again, is how these quiet reflections can lead us to a broader understanding of aging itself.
Okay.
The source speaks about the end of life not as a failure, but maybe as closing a door that many others have passed through. It suggests the end can be dignified, a masterpiece in itself.
A final scene written with passion.
Yes, like a final scene written with the same passion as a first act. And that depends on us.
Not doctors, not family.
Not primarily. It depends on our daily decision not to let life slip through our fingers while we still have it. It depends on whether we nurture relationships, keep learning, allow ourselves to feel love, pain, nostalgia, wonder, especially maybe in those quiet hours when the world sleeps.
And this really challenges that insidious lie, doesn't it? The one that whispers, oh, at 80, everything is already said and done.
It absolutely does. That's a lie repeated so often we start to believe it's some kind of biological truth, as if life just stops surprising us.
But it doesn't have to.
Not at all. There are countless stories. People falling in love at 85, learning piano at 90, writing books at 92, cooking every Sunday at 95, like it's a celebration.
So why do some give up and others keep going?
The difference isn't just genes or luck. The source suggests it's in their attitude, and that sparks some refuse to extinguish.
Even when things get tough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because yes, the body changes, it weakens, it tires, but the source says the soul is untamable if you don't tame it yourself.
Wow.
Perhaps it's in those quiet 3 a.m. moments, stripped of distraction, that we're most receptive to this deeper truth about aging. When our soul might be gently nudging us awake to notice this untamed capacity.
That's a powerful call to action then, to rewrite your story, be an emotional rock, a light, even when you feel physically diminished.
Precisely. If at some point you felt your soul shrink, if you believe you had nothing left to give, the source encourages you to pause, breathe, look at yourself through the eyes of your younger self.
The dreamer.
The one who dreamed, who got excited, who chased impossible things. Where is that version of you? Is it gone or just hidden? Maybe there's still time to get it back.
It's never too late.
It's never too late to rewrite your story. Never too late to be the grandfather who tells stories, the mother who gives advice, the wise elder who still believes in wonder.
You can still be a light.
You may not be physically strong, but you can be an emotional rock. You can be a light even when things feel dark. The core analogy here is beautiful. Old age isn't life's winter.
It's autumn.
It's autumn. And autumn, with its fallen leaves, its chilly wind, its melancholy, it's also beautiful. A different kind of beauty, quieter, more introspective, but deeply transformative if lived consciously.
Don't let regret be the last thing.
Exactly. Fill your days with meaning, even if there seem few left. Give love, even if it's hard. Speak, even if it hurts. Because true emptiness isn't in what we lose, but maybe in what we never tried.
And often, it's in the quiet of those 3 a.m. moments that these profound questions arise.
Challenging us, perhaps, to consider our legacy and purpose.
So you've covered a lot today, really digging into the mystery of those 3 a.m. wake-ups. We've seen how they're multifaceted, biological, physical, emotional. They are, in essence, your body and mind telling you something important, something unique to your journey.
And this deep dive, I think, shows us that aging isn't just about decay. It's about a continuous process of evolution and integration.
Yeah.
The insights gained from those quiet hours can lead to a more intentional, compassionate way of living your later years, turning what might feel like a disruption into an opportunity for growth.
So the next time you find yourself awake in the dark, maybe staring at the ceiling as the clock flashes 3 a.m., remember, you're not alone. And you're not failing. You're simply being called to notice, to care, to understand a little more about what it means to grow older with grace. And perhaps that invitation to deeper self-awareness and intentional living is the real treasure waiting for you in the quiet of the night.